You are bold, you are fearless, you are radiant. It's time to unlock the diamond from within. BFF, we rise above, stronger together, we shine with love. Faith unshaken, hearts on fire, fearless souls, we're reaching high.
Hey guys, thank you so much for joining back in with me with another Women on the Rise segment of the BFF Empowerment Podcast. I'm Black Diamond, and today I have the honor of speaking with Miss Jenna. Edinburgh? Is that
U-
how you pronounce your last name?
Udenberg.
Udenberg. Okay, I'm sorry about
hmm
that.
That's all right.
And Miss Jenna, she is a accessibility educator. She is also an inspiring author and an advocate for people with disabilities. So thank you so much for joining us today, Miss Jenna.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself outside of the introduction I just gave?
Yeah, I reside in northeastern Minnesota on beautiful Lake Superior. I have been a manual wheelchair user for 37 years. I've had juvenile rheumatoid arthritis for 38 years. Had an awesome 19-year career as a music educator. And then with a lovely pandemic, different things uprooted in my world. So, that's when I was a 2020 Bush Fellow. And so that led to starting the nonprofit Above and Beyond with You, becoming an accessibility educator, a disability advocate, becoming a published author, becoming a columnist for one of our local papers. So life has really changed a lot in the last few years.
Oh, I
Um,
see.
but yeah, so lots of cool things, lots of different ways of coming at different things of life. And love being out on paved trails, love hanging out with friends, doing board games, love being on podcasts and sharing and uplifting not only my story, not only the story of our nonprofit, but more importantly, the story of other disabled folks. And so we can create a more inclusive and accessible world for everybody to live and thrive in.
Oh, wow, that is great because I'm actually disabled myself. I'm
Oh,
blind.
awesome. I didn't know that. That's
Yes,
awesome.
ma'am.
Another connection for us.
Yes, ma'am. And so that's part of why we do this podcast because we like to just everyone has a voice, no matter what your
Mhm.
disability is, whatever your walk of life is, we want people to be able to share their story, share their journeys, and to help and motivate and empower other women, who may be going through the same thing or have some of the same challenges or know someone who may be and maybe having a hard time dealing with whatever it is that they're having to deal with in life.
Yep, 100%.
Okay, so you've mentioned that you are an author. What is your book about?
Yeah, my book is Within My Spokes, and it is my memoir of life from diagnosis date until 2022 when I was working on writing it. It was published in July of 2023.
Hmm.
I share stories of what it was like as a child, as a high schooler, in college, like all just the real life scenarios of life as a disabled person, as a woman in rural Minnesota, as my leadership journey and what that looked like through different fellowships and opportunities, talking about imposter syndrome. I mean, I kind of hit a lot of different topics so much that when people go, "Oh, tell us more about this story," I'm like, I shared
Hmm.
that in my book. And they're like,
Sometimes you
don't
forget.
you remember that? I'm like, I'm such an open book in real life that I'm like, okay, that did get published. All right, got it. And it's super funny because I also talk about my some of my good friends, and some, I use their real names. Others I just, for their
Hmm.
anonymity and whatever. But anyways, it's so funny because I have good friends, Jamie and Megan, in my book. And it's so funny because people will be like, Jamie, I read your book. Megan, I read your book. And they're like, what are you talking about? And they're like, oh, Jenna's book that I happen to be in like a chapter or a part of a chapter. And like, but that's the cool thing because when I was writing it, I was given the word tapestry. before I wrote it. And I was like, I don't know why this word was like super important. But my subtitle is A Tapestry of Pain, Growth, and Freedom. And it really came to be throughout that writing process, which was challenging, writing about how I found my own faith through depression and a suicide plan, how dealing with other people's discrimination and oppression and just gross things in life, dealing with the medical model versus the social model. Like there are a lot of hard stories in there as well. But it just reminded me as I went through those processes is like, yeah, when you look at the outside of a tapestry, it's beautiful, and you've got long strings and you've got short strings and you've got glimmery ones, you got sparkly ones, you've got really strong intricate ones, and then you've got kind of like the weak little like short ones that are there. And that's so telling of our relationships in life. And then when you flip that tapestry over, this is my most fun part, is like it's a hot mess.
Oh
Right?
yeah, definitely.
So there are more days that I can identify with that hot mess of knots and strings and broken things and, rewired things than I can always identify with that other side of that beauty and all the things. But it just helps me remember that every relationship and every person that comes into our lives has a purpose. And sometimes it's those long haul people, sometimes it's those really deep roots, and other times it's those little sparkly strings that are short and they're kind of cool, but like everything has its purpose. So
Definitely. And so you did mention that you were diagnosed with an arthritis condition when you were 8. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
yeah, so it was in February of 1988, and the story goes that my family went skiing at a local small park that floods like one of their fields in the winter. And that time when I was out with my older siblings and my dad, I guess, I had fallen. So the next morning I was in the bathtub, one of those old goldenrod yellow 1970s looking older tubs, right? And getting ready for first grade, and my one knee popped up above the bubble bath, and it was like twice the size of my other knee. So like any good little first grade girl, I screamed for my mommy because mommies make everything better. And from there it was like, all right, we're gonna go to this doctor. And that doctor in our small town was like, you have water on the knee. Now my dad used to be on the volunteer ambulance, and he's like, my daughter, who's 7 years old, does not have water on the knee because she's not an athlete, she hasn't done anything, whatever. So we got in a second opinion. So thankfully our small rural town had another doctor back in that time. And he kind of took one look at me, took some blood, and said, I think you have juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, but you have to go see a rheumatologist. You need to go to the bigger city closest to us. Went and saw rheumatology, and he too did some blood work, some x-rays, all the things. And he's like, yep, I am almost certain it is JRA. But at that time, Lyme's disease, a tick-borne illness, was coming on the scene in northern Minnesota. So in order to truly get my diagnosis, I had to go down to Mayo Clinic in Rochester and go through a ton of battery of tests and see tons of different doctors, and many of them using very large medical jargon that I had no idea. Many of them, English was their second language, which was super cool. But as a little kid, you're just like, I have no idea what you're saying for a whole host of reasons. But I could just sit here and listen to you talk, even though my parents are starting to cry. And I don't think what you're saying is good, but it sounds really cool. So then I got the diagnosis of juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. And now, decades later, they're more likely calling it either just juvenile arthritis or juvenile idiopathic arthritis, because it doesn't follow the disease cycle of rheumatoid, which I was so thankful to figure out in the last like decade. Because as a kid, I just thought I was being like bad. Like I'd go to the doctor and he'd be like, oh, well, you're having pain here. Well, my little book over here says I need to do A, B, and C. And so then we try A, B, C on Jenna's body, and you would get like the square root of Q times the cube of R, equals S. And they'd be like, what just happened? I feel like Jenna's vessel just happened. Like it doesn't like what you thought. This isn't like doing its thing. We are chasing this disease through my body. I felt like a Jenga game and Tetris and Jumanji and the Matrix all at the same time. So it's
Oh,
like,
wow.
oh, your right ankle is sore. Oh, but now it's jumping over to your left knee, but now it's in your right hip, and now it's in your left finger, but now it's in, and so it
Oh,
was
wow.
just all over the place. And like, because then you compensate, right? So if something's sore,
Mm.
the other side has to. So I was a hot mess and started having orthopedic surgeries when I was 15 and 16 and had to have artificial knees put in. And so from there, I ended up having surgeries almost every 6 to 9 to 12 months. So I would never fully
Oh,
heal from
wow.
one before hopping in to another. So
That had to be hard. Wow.
yeah,
That's a
it
lot for a
was.
kid to go through.
It was. And I was in a wheelchair by age 8. So I was diagnosed in like February when I was still 7. And
Hmm.
within a calendar year from that date, I was already in a wheelchair, which, I don't know any different. But decades later, when you can understand more and have those conversations,
Hmm.
they were like, yeah, that was very rapid. And we didn't, know what really to do with you.
Hmm. And
So
so that isn't something that's hereditary. That kind of just came out of nowhere.
yeah, I think the jury is still kind of out. Like when I was in high school, we volunteered to do some genetic testing and all of that. And at that time, there wasn't necessarily like complete evidence one way or the other. And now I
Hmm.
don't even know if they're doing a ton of research in that way. I mean, I do have arthritis on both sides of my family lineage, but it's all typically like older onset osteoarthritis or rheumatoid. So I'm the only
Hmm.
lucky winner of juvenile. And it's kind of funny because a few years ago, when I told doctors, they're like, we could really get rid of juvenile off there if you don't want to be known as having a kid's disease.
Hmm.
And I was like, I don't care that I just turned 40 and I still have juvenile arthritis because the reality is it's still happened to me at 7. And if I end up being in an ambulance or some other medical facility that doesn't know me, they need to know that like all of these, like these 6 joint replacements, all these scars on my body, all these, different joint presentations and all that kind of stuff. Like, no, 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 no.
Hmm.
They need to know that this has been around for decades, not just like, oh, you got it when you were 32 or 41
Exactly.
or
Just like
or
there's
what have you.
juvenile diabetes.
Right, yeah. Like, nope. I want that badge of honor. Thank you very much. So people treat me differently, hopefully in a better way, right? Versus like, oh, you're an old hag with lots of baggage. Yep, whatever.
Oh, wow.
But there are some folks out there, right?
Yes, ma'am, there is. Okay, so tell me a little bit more about your accessibility advocacy and your advocacy for people with disabilities. What are some of the things that you do to help those who are disabled?
Yeah, I mean, advocacy kind of just became a part of life,
Hmm.
learning how to self advocate and all those things. So I've been doing it for a long time for myself and as a byproduct for others. My parents always raised me that, when you come into a space, leave it better than how you found it.
Hmm.
And I've kind of morphed that saying into also like when you meet people, try to leave them in a better state than how you found them.
Yes.
Um, and so, some people like using those cliche things of like, oh, Jenna's such a trailblazer and all those kinds of things. And the more that I delve into disability community and culture, like I get why we use some of those terms, but in some ways I'm like, no, I'm just living life. And if the byproduct is that you're making it better for other folks, then I feel like that's more organic and authentic versus like, oh, let Jenna put on her cape and her special hat because now she's
Hmm.
an advocate hat, like like this is just a part of my chemistry and my core values and like who I am as a person.
Exactly.
And it's not just the Jenna show. It's not just the Jenna story. Like I want to help others find their advocacy voice. And it's a whole community thing, right? So
Hmm.
it's that's why Above and Beyond with You, our nonprofit, has the with you because it's that educator side of me as well, because it's like we need to grow together. We need to do this work together because it's important. And,
Hmm.
when my medical things pop up, well, then I need to take some steps back and do self-care and, take care of the medical stuff. But the
Hmm.
work has to continue. So there has to be a strong board. There has to be strong community engagement. There has to be, the work must continue, even if the leader is taken out for a bit, right? So
Exactly.
more shared leadership type of examples. And so our nonprofit, we truly work more in the wheelhouse, but boom ching, of mobility disabilities, because me and our president are both manual wheelchair users, and we want to be authentic to our message. So of course, we want to uplift and amplify the voices of all disabled people, but yet we also want to be very clear that our lived experiences so far as a board and as the founder is in this area of disability community and experience. So, if businesses come to us and are like, hey, we want to make sure we're accessible and inclusive for all disabilities, well, then we're reaching our hand out to, some of the local organizations that are for deaf, hard of hearing, that are for folks who are blind, that are for folks that have neurological traumatic brain injury, those kinds of things, or people with mental illness or mental health disorders or needs. So we're not pretending to be the expert in any of those things. We're the expert of our lived experience and of our story,
Yes.
but not of others, and trying to pull them in. So we do like site audits. We do working with state and local government agencies and entities. We work with small businesses, large businesses. People ask us to come and do site assessments. Others ask us to come in and do training. So we're kind of all over the board of things that we're willing to offer. And a lot of times I'm just in a lot of meetings. I'm being that stakeholder, I'm being that name, I'm being that face, I'm being those wheels in a space for people to go, oh, that's right, the ADA. And then they hear my voice going, no, it's not about the ADA, because we're not a checklist. We are people that have needs just like anybody else. They might just look different. And here's how we represent all of the people that you're trying to serve, or all the people that you're trying to get to your state park, or all the people that ... right? So yeah, so for me, it's a lot of meetings. For others, it's putting together awesome events that are helping our local folks. We're trying to start local and do it in our own backyard first, but also expand beyond, because we know this is such a large issue. And because of the education background, all of my board members, there's 9 of us, we all are connected to education somehow. And I think that's how that separates us and helps us be unique in this large equity, diversity, inclusion, accessibility world.
Okay. Well, thank you for explaining that. So I have noticed that you say you use a manual wheelchair. Is that by preference, or is that just what's better for you?
Both. I do have a power chair, or people that call it an electric chair, but not one that shocks you. But I found the world is more accessible where I live, being able to use my manual. Because power chairs, at least for my experience, are harder to get in public bathrooms, which is like one of our biggest arch nemesises of things not being accessible to meet all of our basic needs. And it just works better in like my adaptive van and just in life. So I'm a foot propeller and an arm propeller. So it's nice having that ability to go between both. And I've always been like, I don't want to be dependent on technology. So I always said I would never get a conversion van. And here I am a decade later having a conversion van. So I have to eat my words very often, but all good.
Okay. So sounds like maybe like the manual wheelchairs are like smaller, I guess, more compact, or are they about the same size as a motorized or
Yeah, it all depends on your bells and whistles and what things you add to the motorized. Like the floor footprint, I've always been told, is about the same. But sometimes for me, like turning radiuses and those kinds of things. But again, it's just because I've been in one for 37 years. So
Okay.
So it's just kind of your preference. And then also where I live too, there's not a lot of automatic doors or push buttons.
Yeah. Okay, that
So
explains it.
that's
Gotcha.
hard to like take up one hand using a joystick and only having one hand to open the other door. So like in my manual, I have both hands to mess with the door or ram it with my chair. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So yeah, there's just some different everyday living situations that this just fits me currently better.
Okay. All right. And so you've mentioned Bush Fellow. What is that?
Yeah, so the Bush Foundation that is located in Minnesota offers a Bush Fellowship, which encompasses the 3 states of North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, and the 23 tribal nations that are in those geographic areas. And
Mhm.
so every year they select about 26 people. And some of the information has changed a little bit since 2020. But it's an awesome program where if you go through the different levels of application, then you get I guess you would say a stipend. When I did it, it was $50,000 per year, and you could
Mhm.
use it to do like getting a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, a doctorate, educating yourself. It's really about what do you need as a community leader to make yourself stronger, to make yourself sustainable, to make yourself more healthy. And
Mhm.
so you can do it up to 2 years, and I know the financial aspect of that is larger. I want to say it's like $75,000 a year now. So like for some people, they take a sabbatical from work, and so you could use the fellowship to pay for your everyday expenses, your rent, your whatever, like whatever is going to help you invest in yourself is the whole
Mhm.
point of it.
Oh, okay.
And you can do like your own self-described one. So my plan was that I was going to travel where all the wheels have gone before me. So I wanted to get out to Berkeley, where Section 504 and Ed Roberts and Trudy Human and all those folks like made life much better for you and I, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
I wanted to get out to a town in Florida that was like the most accessible community, and every place has buttons, every bathroom is accessible. Like just meet those community leaders that made that huge impact on their community. I wanted to go to Bradford Woods and shoot, another place. Ooh, it just came in my brain. In Indiana, that is one of the biggest rehab centers in the world. And I also wanted to get out to Sweden, which has been known as the most accessible country in the world for years.
Yes, I've heard of that.
Yeah, and and plus Sweden has very much the same climate as Minnesota, hence most of my ancestors coming from that part of the
Mhm.
world. And so like what better way to like, hey, how is America like not doing the most cool technological or whatever the situation might be, but similar climate, similar winters, like let's make this happen.
Mhm.
So I'm kind of a wallflower. You probably can't tell from how we're having a conversation. I am way more an introvert. I've had to learn how to be an ambivert as an educator and a musician and performer and all the things.
Mhm.
Um, but that was a huge stretch for me to do the Bush application and to think differently and think bigger, which is their tagline
Mhm.
for the Bush Fellowship. And so all that hard work in like a 3 to 4 tier application process, had a couple Bush Fellows from previous cohorts that were mentoring me, which was phenomenal. And then all of a sudden, like we get it and we can't tell anybody, and I'm not married and whatever. So like you can tell your spouse or your significant other, but nobody else. And I was like, all right. So in my book, you'll see a picture of me kissing a can of Bush beans. That
Oh,
was the text
wow.
I sent to a few of my prayer warriors and friends and family. So they knew that I got it, but they didn't officially know, and I couldn't say anything else. But here's
Mhm.
me kissing a can of beans.
Can of beans, the bush
Right.
beans. Oh.
And then the world closed. So
Mhm.
all the travel that I had planned, all the hard work of like this little introvert wallflower from northern Minnesota is gonna go wheel where all these amazing people have wheeled and done amazing things to make my life better. Um, yeah, it just all stopped, right? And
Mhm.
so then as the 2 years progressed, it was like, well, everybody else can now fly because it's a year and a half later, or they could
Mhm.
defer their fellowship by a year or two because Bush is just awesome and inclusive and accommodating in those ways. But for me, like that was a time when I like it wasn't my wheels that made me disabled, it was my immune system. So
Oh, gotcha.
not only my arthritis, but all the medications I take for it
Mhm.
make me even more compromised. So that was the first time that I had that experience of having an invisible disability.
Mhm.
And I really, I mean, it was hard, don't get me wrong, but I cherished that experience because I, before that, would have never known how that feels to other folks within our community.
Exactly.
And So yeah, I mean, just a lot of changes, but yeah, I mean, if anybody lives in those 3 areas or 26 tribal nations, I would say absolutely apply, because even just going through those application questions can change
Mhm.
you and can help you like really define who you are. And even if you don't live in those 3 states and tribal nations, check out the Bush Fellowship website and do those questions yourself, because it is an invaluable process for sure.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. And is there anything else you would like to add? Anything else you would like to share? Anything like that as far as letting the listeners hear?
How much time do you have? No. I guess I would leave them with, disability is not a bad word. And so how can we flip the script on how we see
Oh, that was
disabled
actually a
folks?
word I wanted to actually ask you about. How do you feel about the word disability? Because I've
Ooh,
heard, people do not like being labeled as disabled or handicapped. And so there's all these
yeah.
different, variations of disability, like differently abled or, just
Yep.
these different things. So how do you personally, as a person with a disability, feel about the word disability?
Yeah, and that's a great point. Like for me in this part of my story, I am all about disability and disabled, and I'm a proud disabled woman. And I don't say the proud part in a negative, gross, prideful, you think you're all that in a bucket of fish type of pride, but I
Hmm.
I use that word as in I belong at the table with
Hmm.
you. I'm not under the table. I am not lesser than you. You're not more than me. I'm not more than you, but we're all in this thing called life together. And for
Hmm.
me, I hate the word handicap because that's what I grew up with. And I'm not a golf term. I've never played golf a day in my life. I don't
Hmm.
intend to unless it's driving the cart around. Um, but and for a while, like the handy capable and like you said, the
Hmm. Differently
differently abled
able.
and all that.
Yes.
And for a little bit, I ascribed to that, or I understood it. And for those that use those terms for themselves, awesome. You do you. That's great. For me, I feel like sometimes that's playing into the ableism and how
Hmm.
we have to make ourselves different. And kind of like the same thing, like when people say, "Oh, able-bodied," I've totally 98% of the time have flipped that script in my vocabulary to say
Hmm.
non-disabled. And because otherwise it's saying that I'm not able, and that's not the case. It
Exactly.
looks different. Or like I'm not able because I don't care enough. Like that isn't who I am, what I'm about, or an activity I want to do. So whether I was
Hmm.
non-disabled or disabled, I don't want to play golf. It's just my personality, and you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's just not my bag.
Yeah, I
Um,
always say disability doesn't equal inability.
Right. And so I think it depends on the connotation of where you're at. But I know when I say like, disability is not a bad word. And the other thing I would say is like ADA is not the end all be all. And like I said earlier, we're not a checklist. So
Hmm.
like we're supposed to be going by the spirit of ADA, which is going above and beyond, and ADA is the floor, not the ceiling. So that's again where above and beyond with you comes in, is we want to go above and beyond code. We want to make sure we're meeting people's needs so people can thrive in community, and we're doing it with you, not pointing a finger, not saying we're going to sue you, not saying like
Hmm.
let's make this relationship, let's be symbiotic, and I feel like we can move forward greater by having those principles in place. And then the with you, it's just a capital U, because when I was teaching, little fifth grade, 5-year-olds, kindergartners, right? They can't say
Hmm.
Udenberg. Most of us adults can't. Even I can't some days. So they shortened it to miss you. And so that's why above and beyond with you has the capital U. So yeah. And I think the other thing that I would want to leave the listeners with is like just ask curious questions,
Hmm.
because we don't know
No
what we don't know.
assumptions.
Right. Yeah. And check
Just
your
ask.
unintentional biases, right? But we don't know we have
Hmm.
them until we have conversations and ask curious questions and don't make assumptions. Yeah. So I think those are ways that we can change our world in very small incremental ways of how are we looking at disabled people? How are we interacting with disabled people? And then after a while, it's like, what does a label even mean? Right? Like, I know we have to have labels
Exactly.
in our brain to understand the world around us. Like, hey, that crayon is purple. Hey, that crayon is pink. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there are just some things that we need to know in order for our brains to function and move forward. And then after it, it's like, oh, well, that's just a crayon, and I'm going to use it.
Exactly. Just like, yeah, we're just human beings. Like,
Right. Not that
that's
we're
it.
using human beings. That was kind of a bad example, but
Like, no label. We're just human.
right.
All right. So we've come to my favorite part of the show, which is called What Is She Thinking? And so I'm basically going to give you 5 random phrases, and you just tell me the first thing that pops into your head. Don't think too hard. It's just something fun.
What is she thinking? What are her thoughts? Quick, fast, no blinking. What do you got?
So your first phrase is, if birds didn't fly.
Hmm. I'd have less to aspire to
All
because there's American
right.
pelicans near here. So
Chocolate is.
tasty.
Okay. Don't mess with.
My people.
All right. Okay. It's raining, but.
The sun is shining somewhere.
And we have. Okay. What is the last one? Life is for.
First reaction. Life is for helping others.
All right. I like it. I like it. So would you like to leave the listeners with any of your contact information, where you can be found online, social media, website, anything like that?
Yeah, you can find us at aboveandbeyondwithyou.org is our website. Above and Beyond With You is also on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And you can find my book Within My Spokes on Amazon or wherever you purchase your books.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Miss Jenna, for joining us today. This has been a very empowering episode and segment of the Women on the Rise segment of the podcast. And guys, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode. Don't forget to follow the podcast on all major podcasting platforms. You can also find us on social media at BFF Empowerment Podcast on Facebook, BFF Empowerment Podcast on Instagram, BFF Empowerment Podcast on Threads, and BFF Empowerment Podcast on YouTube. You can also visit our website at bffempowermentpodcast.com. If you would like to be a guest on the Women on the Rise segment of the BFF Empowerment Podcast, or if you just have suggestions of topics you would like us to talk about, you just want to say hi, you want to leave a review, definitely reach out to us at our email at bffempowerment@gmail.com. And thank you so much for listening, and see you next time.
Yes, ma'am.